And I think one of the things I've heard lately is, or how it played out in my head was like, there's this difference between rules and standards. And I don't have a list of rules for our guys.
Yeah.
Like I just don't. But like, what is culture? Culture's lived. Like what our program will be known for is the reputation that myself, our staff, and our players have here across campus, right? That's what our culture is, right? And I can throw any word on a paper, any word on a slide that I want. But at the end of the day, our culture is lived. And if all we're trying to do is meet the rules, we've failed.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we're joined by the head boys basketball coach at Trinity Christian College, David Osborn. Coach Osborn just finished his first season at Trinity. Before, he served 6 seasons as an assistant coach at Indian Wesleyan University. In that time, the Wildcats posted a combined record of 169 wins and 37 losses, reaching the NAIA tournament all 6 years, highlighted by winning the 2018 NAIA National Championship. He has learned a lot from some of the most exceptional cultures in TRU basketball and PGC basketball. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the Jamodi Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them one rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information.
Yeah, so then my wife stays at home with our 4 kids right now. And
you and I are on before we jumped on, we were talking about family stuff, and you mentioned you have 4 kids and 7 is the oldest.
Yep.
So going down to 1, you and I are on opposite ends of that spectrum. So if this was an airplane, I'm landing the airplane.
Yeah.
You're just taking off, man. I mean, you got a few passengers on board, but yeah, I was talking with Jana, my wife, about, I'm 42. She just turned 43. Ooh, okay. I can't believe I just did that. I'll edit that part out, but and we're almost empty nesters. It's going to be there, and so then we just worry about our dogs, and definitely bittersweet deal with Landon, my son, my senior, kind of finishing out, but it's also an exciting time of life too. But this is awesome what you're about to go through for sure.
Yeah. I wish I just would have started sooner.
Yeah.
Like I honestly, part of me is like, man, if I could have been 22 having kids, like, not that you want to wish any of this stuff die, right? But then you get to enjoy some of that next level or the next stage of life with your kids and your grandkids and stuff in a different way. Again, I'm not old, but like, again, I think every phase of life, Lord willing, is your best phase of life in some ways, right? Like, I don't want to look back 50 years from now and say college was the best years of my life, right? No, I want there to be some really fun moments from college, right?
Yeah.
And I want to have made some deep bonds and all of those things. But like, I hope in a lot of ways my life keeps getting richer and richer and richer as time goes on. And not from the standpoint, obviously, of like material things or more wealth, right? But just like fullness of life, right? I think there's probably commonality between you and I and where your source of life comes from, right? And as you pursue your walk with the Lord and you grow in that way, and there's more depths that you can go to over time, and that's a beautiful thing.
I think you nailed it with a richer, fuller life. Some people talk about this living their best life, this being their best life. And again, when you are faith-based, this isn't our best life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not supposed to be. And there are going to be hardships, there are going to be tough times. And if we're just looking for best, happiness, easy, I don't know if that's possible here, and we might be missing some of the opportunities that he has for us. our best life is what's next. And I think
Yep.
that's that level of hope, or what the Bible talks about is that peace that surpasses all understanding. Like it's kind of nuts out there right now in the country, and we never get political or anything on here, but it is nuts. I think anybody can see that. And also, your season can get crazy. You can start to get so wrapped up in wins and losses or district play or conference play, postseason, all of that stuff, that you start acting as if this is the only life you get. But
Yep.
the peace comes from knowing that, yes, this is important. And when our time does come, we'll be asked, what did you do with Christ? And then also, what did you do with the people that I put in your life? But if that's our focus, if that's our why, then maybe it allows us to get off that roller coaster of ups and downs. And coach, I'm not at all speaking from a position of I've figured it out. It's just I think it's just a reminder for me daily to not ride that ride. But you nailed it. Fullness, rich. I think we can set up our days to do that.
In one thing you said there, like you look at our world where it's at today, right? And I think we've offered more solutions than we've ever offered before, right? Like, man, you can turn to any exposed, any publication, anything, and there's a solution for your problem, right?
Yeah.
And as we've come up with more and more diversified solutions, right? The recipe hasn't gotten better, it's gotten worse, right? And again, I think a lot of this is, man, the further you get away from God, right? And the further way to get away from Jesus, right? The further away you're getting from the way he's, designed things to be, right? And so,
Mm.
again, not trying to be political with it, right? But like if you believe in truth, right, then truth has to anchor you in something, right? And where does that truth come from and what is the source of it and how does that impact all those other things? And yeah, it's just not getting better, right? And then
Yeah,
we're
next week we're discussing one of our standards, which is toughness. I think sometimes your standards, they can definitely be things that you already are as a program, but they can also be things that you're aspiring to be. I think as our players, we're just always aspiring as at a small private school where most of these guys, their lives have been pretty darn good, not perfect.
yeah,
Like some have tough family lives and they've had things happen, but the fact that they could be at faith, they're doing okay.
yeah,
And so toughness is one of those things that isn't always natural for these guys. They haven't gone through some of that adversity. They've had parents that love them so much that they helicopter in and rescue them from adversity, especially early on. And so, toughness, where we're going to talk about it next week, it will pertain to on the basketball floor, but even more important, it's going to be toughness with how you live,
mhm,
toughness with not compromising your values and standards, because I'm old enough now to where I'm pretty established in what I believe, and I think you're at that place too. But these high school kids, a lot of the
yeah,
faith or the ideas that they have is really their parents,
yeah,
and or what they've been, if they've gone to faith for a long time or a place like this, they've just grown up into that. But then within 2 or 3 years, they're going to be faced with decisions. And that's where toughness comes in. When your entire class and your professor is saying one thing, but you know deep in your heart that that's not the truth that you believe. And we can even do that within basketball though too. Toughness to me with coaches comes from if you're having a winning season and you got great kids and the culture's strong, I don't know how tough it really takes to coach that group, how much toughness you
yeah,
need to have. But when adversity strikes and the
yeah,
plan that you thought you had isn't going the way that you thought
yeah,
it would, how tough are you? Do you change as a person? Do you compromise? Do you resort to scare tactics or things that are short term to try to get your point across or to right the ship? Or are you tough enough to stay the course? So sorry about that. It made me think of toughness and how really with how things are today. You talked about truth, knowing what truth is, and then having the toughness to stick with it.
I feel like my first go around as a high school coach, I just failed miserably at that, right? Like things got tough and we started losing. And my best player at the time, he was a college kid. He would have played in college. He tore his ACL our last open gym of the year, right?
Oh,
I mean, you take a college kid off of the floor
yeah.
and it just changes things, right? And in some ways, I just lost my mind, right? And you look back and you're just like, man, you just blew it in some of those ways, right? Where you just get caught up in guys not doing it the way you want to, or this or that. And it's like, man, it's been about relationships, right? And so that was kind of the commitment I made to myself here as I came in, is just like, dude, whatever happens, like don't lose sight of the relationships, right? Because like that's what I can control and that's what I'm wired to do in a lot of ways, right? And be careful what you wish for, man. Since I got the job here, since I got the campus, it has been a disaster in a lot of ways. But that's just how it goes, right? And so, me and my assistant right now, we're just like, hey, we're not going to lose sight of their relationships and we just won't compromise in that way. And
Yeah.
whether some stuff gets done or doesn't go the way we want, we can't control that. But like, man, we can control how much we pour into these guys and how intentional we are with that. And that's where we got to start and end it at the end of the day.
I was thinking about how funny it would be to have an episode here that where our talk is all about trying to outdo each other for how big of failures we are.
I
You
might be
think
able
you're
to
a
win that.
failure? Let me tell you. And majority of the moments here. So my teams of faith, and I got this from Leslie Broadhurst, legendary coach in Texas, and but 35 years of coaching at the same school. His wall was just full when I was having this talk with him. And so I went out to Kinko's, took my team pictures, and I'm starting my wall. But, the teams that I look at right there, and unfortunately, I don't know if your eye is like this, but my eye goes to not the ones where maybe we had wins, but the ones that were super enjoyable. My eye goes to the disappointments. And not that the kids were disappointment, but more of the ways that I screwed up. Maybe the plan was just the wrong plan for this team, for this skill set. Not every team is going to be the same. And so to think what you did 5 years ago, rinse and repeat, it'll work now with this
Yeah.
group. That's tough. That's scary to do. But my eyes go to that. You know what I would really love is if on the schedule or after when you're looking back over the years and you have the records next to the team, I think there should be a few more gaps next to it. And these gaps are injuries. Like if there's a check mark in that gap where there's
Yeah.
injuries, well then okay, I don't look at that record the same way. Grades, if there were grade issues, you could always point that back to the coach. But I've taken the approach. I was actually having a talk with the Denton Geyer coach who's had so many NBA and college players as a high school coach that have gone on. It's insane. But we both have a similar approach to grades where we're pretty hands off. We're not doing grade checks. We're not doing, like, at this point, as a high school kid, if what you say you want is to play basketball, then you got to do what you have to do there.
Mhm.
And so we don't hunt and we don't. And I've had kids, rarely, but I've had a couple that have been ineligible, and I haven't really lost a lot of sleep or sweat over it. And it's something I feel like they need to go through. But grades and then culture. Yeah, was the culture good or bad? So I think you look at your record, and if any of those boxes were checked off, there's really one out of the three that you have a lot of control over as a coach.
Yep.
And so if I see 15 and 15, culture was bad, man, that probably could have been. That
Yeah,
probably could have
exactly.
been 20 and 10. That
Yep.
probably could have been 25 and if I look over and I see 8 and 22 injuries checked off, okay, you tip your hat as a coach,
Yep.
and you move on to what's next, because we all like to think that our systems are so great and we can just next man up mentality, and I love that idea. But what if the next man up isn't even close to
Yeah.
what you had
No doubt.
there before? And so I don't know. There's a part of me that's at records, the season wins and losses. We are competitive, and that's what shows up over time. But I think every season, there's just more. Like if you show me 31 and 2, man, I bet those others are pretty empty.
Yep.
They're not showing up. But
Yep.
that's just my opinion.
Couple just like kind of tangents on that. One, you talk about the guys that you could have gotten almost, right? And there's certain guys that I've had the privilege of coaching, and I would like to say you have an impact on their life in one way or the other, right? Like you know, you're investing in them and you impact their life, but at the end of the day, they're gonna kind of end up where they're gonna end up in some ways, right? Like
Yeah.
there's some dudes where it's like they came in and they're pursuing the Lord and they're growing and they're doing all these things and they're still doing it to this day, right?
Mm.
And you love journeying alongside of them in that life, right? But at the same point, like if it was me or somebody else, like they're gonna do okay if that makes sense, right? Um, but then you have the guys that are just tough, right? And like sometimes as a coach, like I'm guilty of it, of like, why can't you like, why are you being like this, right? But it's like at the end of the day, those are the guys you're trying to reach, right? If you're just going for the guys that can make it no matter what, like why are you coaching? Like it's a selfish ambition, right? But if you're in it to help those kids, like then figure out a way to reach those kids. And I think that's the tough part sometimes is what you're saying. Some of the best ways to teach a kid is to let them go, right? Like you can't micromanage every part of it. And
Yeah.
I think you know Tyler Costin, right?
Yeah.
Tyler
Yeah.
said this to me. It might have been in passing. I don't know. We've had random conversations from here and there, but I was first getting into directing camps and doing all that. He said there's somebody out there that could get that kid or could reach him or get
Yeah.
him to jump on board.
Wow, that's a good nugget.
You've been around camps, right? And you got 99 good ones, right? And there's the one squirrel, and you're like, like I'm the guy that just the way I'm wired, I'm like black and white. Like I just want to dismiss him and be like, be gone, right?
Yeah.
But Tyler's approach like kind of challenged me, like, how do you get that one kid there, right? Like, how do you get him on board? What do you got to do? And I mean, there's so many spiritual applications to all this stuff, right?
Sure.
Like, thank goodness that when I didn't first accept God's word, right? The gospel message, he didn't just say, hey, be done with you, right? Like he kept coming in my
For your
family.
first mistake, probably 30
Exactly.
minutes after that moment. Yeah.
Exactly. But just how do you reach those kids, right? How do you
Yeah.
find a way to get to them? And, I think that's one of the things I love about coaching at the NAI level. And this is no knock on other divisions or anything like that, right? But man, if you're at a Division 1 school, right, and you have 1,000 coaches on staff, right, and you have a thousand people in your athletic department that are helping you get your program along, if a kid isn't eligible, that is your head, right? Like you are done.
How can this actually happen? Is
Yeah,
this allowed to
exactly.
happen?
Exactly. And at our level, we don't have that support structure in place, right? And this is what I'm trying to teach our guys and even our staff, right? Is like, hey, listen, our job is not to hold their hands for 4 years because if we hold their hands for 4 years, they are not equipped to be a husband, a father, to take accountability in the workforce. They aren't ready for that, right? However, like they might come in some different spots and we've been dealt different cards, but at the end of the day, everybody's got to take ownership of their stuff. And
Mm.
if we don't preach a culture of accountability, like man, what do we got in the end, right? So like whether it be grades or timeliness or extra work or whatever the case, we want to position them in such a way that like maybe they're not there yet, but how do we help get them there quickly? And we might talk about standard a little bit later, but like helping them understand what the standard is, right? And I think one of your things you had said was like, what'd you steal? And I think one of the things I've heard lately is, or how it played out in my head was like, there's this difference between rules and standards, right? And I don't have a list of rules for our guys,
Yeah.
right? Like I just don't. But like, what is culture? Culture's lived, right? Like what our program will be known for is the reputation that myself, our staff, and our players have here across campus, right? That's what our culture is, right? And I can throw any word on a paper, any word on a slide that I want, right? But at the end of the day, our culture is lived. And if all we're trying to do is meet the rules, we've failed, right? But if we know what the standard is and we're living towards the standard and we're setting a standard, right? And we're pursuing that and then some, like then we got a chance, right? And so for me, it's like, how do we get our guys? And again, as you're taking over a program, like I don't want them to just thrive in this culture that we're creating here. I want them to be ingrained and take a heart level. So when they go out in the business world or in their family, they can go establish their own culture in their own unique way, right? And this is another thing I wasn't even planning on talking about Tyler this much, right? But like, man, I was like Dina Evans was my director when I started at PGC,
No
like
way.
the GOAT, right?
Nice.
I loved hearing her talk, man. Like she
Yeah.
was awesome. And then you know those guys, right? You've got Mono, you've got Tyler, right? I worked a lot with Chad originally. I was around Lindsey Fenley, you know, like just all the, you know, the OGs of PGC, right? And then I'm coming up and like trying to be an instructor and then start leading my own camps. And I'm like, I'm terrible. Like this is,
Yeah.
and you're trying to watch all these other guys, right? And Tyler said to me, and it's been one of the most impactful things in my coaching. And then, you know, working for Greg Tonigal and Jeff Clark over there at IWU, right? Like those guys have just been around a long time. And it's so easy for me to look and try to be those guys in some ways,
Yeah.
right? But Tyler said, let the gym be an extension of who you are, right? And as he said that to me, like it just kind of let the burden go of like, I'm not Tyler and I don't have to be Tyler. And my gym is going to feel different than Tyler's gym's feels, right? And that's okay. Like our message can be the same and we can get to the same destination. But at the end of the day, we're going to get there in a different way. And so this whole idea of again, let the gym be an extension of who you are. Like that's what I want from our guys. Like let your family be an extension of who you are, right? Like Jalen's family is going to look different than Tylen's family is going to look different than Donovan's family is going to look different than Chris's family, right? But like, man, what is this standard that they're setting, right? And ultimately, our prayer is that we're rooted in Christ through this, right? And then that flows into every area of their life as they set that standard, right? But again, I'm not some of these other guys. I'm never going to be some of these other guys, and it's not even worth trying. But hey, God's designed me a certain way. Let's live into those gifts a little bit and let our culture take that shape, if you will.
Hmm. Couple things there. Something that Jana, my wife again, who's super wise, helped me with my first couple years here is I think as coaches, maybe as parents too, we can take on the identity of it's our job to save them. We have to do something. And I agree with Tyler. I agree. There is somebody out there that can connect with every kid. Maybe that's you, maybe it's not. But I had a player that just seemed to want nothing to do with what Faith was giving, what our program was offering, what I was selling, nothing, and was always fighting it. And there were times where I just thought, like, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I reach this kid? Why can't I help him change? And Jana was like, it's just not your job to save him. And there's like this weight lifted off my shoulder. That doesn't mean I didn't correcting or upholding the standards that we have. I just stopped caring if he cared or not, if he was miserable or with them or not. Now, I don't think you just go out and like, our players are miserable. I don't care. Let's evaluate why they are. Is there something that you're doing to suck the joy out of the gym as a
Yep.
coach? Is there something that your standards that you really don't care about that, but you're just holding these traditions or lines just to do them? And like, and the kids are frustrated and miserable with those. Like, I would think always evaluate that, but we can't save them. But what we're trying to do is plant as many seeds as possible. And my own life, as I think I've felt that, or was a product of that, which is growing up in a house that the Bible was in our house every day, went to church every week. I had all of that knowledge ingrained, all the seeds. And then when adversity hit, man, I didn't follow any of that. I went the opposite way for about 9 years. But then at age 30, it was like coming back home to that way of living. Like that's what I want for our players is they may make bad decisions and they may not buy in completely here, but I'm going to plant as many seeds so that when they're 25 and they finally send me the text of, Coach, remember, man, humility, I think I got it. Like, I think now they don't say I'm so proud of how humble I am. That would, but
Yeah.
the humility, I think I realized that it's not thinking about myself or thinking less of myself. It's about thinking of myself less. When something clicks, anything, then those are those coaching paychecks. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I needed that reminder today. Maybe a coach needed to hear that of, if you feel like you're failing them, if you feel like you're not reaching them, maybe you won't, but maybe someone else will reap those rewards.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
that's the thing,
go
man.
ahead.
Like I would just say with that, like that's why I don't know if I want to say that's why you get paid to coach because like there's got to be discernment at every turn, right? And like you got to be able to discern when that right time is to let that guy go even, right? Because I think the thing that we miss sometimes is like, man, at the end of the day, if I bring one guy that's a cancer and I let him around for an entire season, what does that do to the experience or the lack of growth that the rest of those 14, 15 other guys can have, right? Like sometimes it's like addition by subtraction. And again, I don't mean just to say you write all those kids off, right? That's not what I'm saying. But like in your heart of hearts, there's got to be a time and a place where it's like, no, we're doubling down and trying to reach this kid. And then no, we're actually hurting the rest of these guys because of that, right? And man, being a parent changes all those things too, right?
No
Because
doubt.
man, like I look at my own life, right? And my biggest regrets in my life are when I didn't listen to my dad, right? Like, man, he told me he loved me, he cared about me, he said all the right things, and I just chose to blatantly not listen to him, right? And I'll go to my grave with those being some of the biggest regrets in my life, right? And I look at my own kids, right? And I'm like, man, I just hope their story is different than that, right? Or that like, not that I'm not some perfect dad, I got a lot of work to do, right? But those times when you see something that's just gonna cause havoc for the rest of their life or be something that they don't see,
Hmm.
they listen to it, right? They heed it. And
Yeah.
yet I can't control that, right? Like I can train them up in the way they should go. And so when they're old, then out apart from it. But like I can't control all their decisions. And then you got to rest in that. And I asked my dad now, I said, hey, if you could do stuff different now, what would you do? He said, I'd pray more for you guys, right? And like at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? Because it's got to be the Lord interceding for us in that way. And I think, my time at Iowa, we spent a lot of time in prayer there, right? And so I think that's something that we need to do here as a staff too, is just like how do we pray for our guys, right? And again, this whole idea, like I think Apostle Paul talks about it, like man, it's not that you're going to convert everyone, right? But man, it is our job to be good stewards of the knowledge that we've been given and be faithful to share that. And again, thankfully, nobody gave up. My parents didn't give up the first time and said, he didn't listen, right? Like you keep coming with truth and love. And again, my dad and many people before have said it's more caught than taught, right? Like your walk's got to be caught, not just taught. And I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to do here is I set the standard. And again, by no means am I the standard, right? But like I understand what the culture that I want to build and I understand what I want that to look like. And so, I think Boomer Roberts there from Purdue Northwest calls it being in the fight, right? And like I want to be in the fight with our guys, and whether that's in a workout or with some conditioning stuff or a morning junkyard, like I want to be in the fight with my guys because at the end of the day, they know, hey, coach is getting after it too, and he cares too, and he's in the fight with us, and so that's what we're trying to do and build as we set the tone and the standard for what our culture is supposed to be all about.
Phil Beckner talked about praying for his players, and that's something he wished he would do more. And I thought about that. Jason Besta at John Brown has magnets of every player's name on his wall, and throughout the day, when he prays for them, he moves the magnet over. So you
Hmm.
got this whole list of players, and
Yeah.
he moves them over. And one thing I've learned doing this now for almost 3 years is there's so many great ideas and so
Yeah.
many great ways to do it, but you got to choose one. Like right
Yeah.
now, what's my plan for praying for my players? I don't have one. Like that's
Yeah.
not something that but I've heard Best to do it. And that episode came and went, and I didn't get magnets made. Beckner tells me, like you start to hear these kind of reoccurring themes that some of the coaches you look up to or the coaches you really appreciate do. Man, make the choice, spend the time,
Yeah.
make the effort, find the money to go to Kinko's and get those
Yeah.
magnets made or whatever. And then he also said that we have to fight for the space between their ears. And I really like that idea. It kind of goes all along with what we're talking about is I think we focus on athletic period here, man. We focused on their two ball. We focused on finishing with a drop and a cone snatch for that active offhand and a finish. We fought for on a short closeout when they get in our bubble. How do we catch and rip off of a split and go? I fought for that time, but how much time did I fight for what's in between their ears? And how intentional am I on doing that? And again, we focus on the X's and O's, what ends up being the small part, but the
Hmm.
big part, so easy to let that go, right?
Hmm. No doubt. And I would say this, the one thing thought I had kind of a couple of times as we talked through some of this is like Just bringing it back to the gospel of like, man, we set standards for our guys, right? And the truth is, we're never going to fully live up to the standard, right? And that can be such a discouraging thing, right? And it's the same thing as humans, right? Like the law and perfection is the standard, and we will never attain it, right? But the beauty in the fact that we'll never attain it is like we don't have to because Christ did, right?
Yeah.
And, when God looks at us, he doesn't see all of our sin and our shame and all of our guilt, right? He sees Christ's holiness and perfection and his righteousness, right? And how do we kind of take that shift in that mindset, right? And take it from, hey, I'm never going to be there, right? So woe is me, or throw my hands up, or whatever the case might be, right? And when you see who Christ is, the joy and the hope that that brings, even as a team, right? Hey,
Yeah.
we're not gonna reach every single thing, but like, man, are we growing, right? And if I remodeled a house, and it was one of the most difficult, rewarding things that I've done in my adult life. We had three kids, a fourth on the way. There was some adoption stuff we were working through at the time, job, all of that, right? And I'm a perfectionist, right? And I had now a friend, a mentor of mine who would come over and help me with it. And I would get so frustrated as we went through this whole rebuilding process. And Dave said to me, he said, aim for perfection, but settle for excellence, right? And I think that to me like freed me in a lot of ways. And it's been good for me in my life too, right? Like I don't want to settle for less than my very best, right? And within our program right now, right, our one of our pillars, call it, is climb, constantly live inside my best, right? And I'm not going to settle for anything than my best. Like that's just the way I'm wired, right? But like it was demoralizing for me at different phases of my life when I didn't get perfection, right? It's like, man, David, like you're not gonna have perfection, but like the excellence that you do it with, or what you learned, or the journey that you go on, right? Like that's the stuff that's the beauty in the end of it, right? And when you're able to, one of the things we said in the past was like abandon the outcome, right? Like when I can truly abandon the outcome and I can live unattached to that, right? Like all of a sudden, what I'm going through, like, is that much sweeter in the end. So I don't know, roundabout what I'm talking about, I don't even know at this point, but just like, man, you can chase perfection, you're never going to get it, but like, what's the excellence and the standard that you're going through, and understanding that that's the beauty in it all.
I had an AD give me great advice. He said, Matt, just remember that we're the weird ones. Because I think sometimes, like a guy that gets to your level and has done the things that you've done, you're an outlier, man. Like not a lot of people are like you. And I think majority of coaches that make it to high school level head jobs, or definitely college, golly, definitely NBA, they're unique, they're different, and they view things differently. Not saying that they don't have bad habits, because bad habits can be in all areas of your life, but I've struggled, and it sounds like you probably too, not only with pursuing perfection, which is not possible to attain, but even excellence. I've been frustrated when my players don't, when they don't care as much, and they don't. I mean, Bobby and I said the toughest thing about coaching is that you want to win more than your players want to. And I've had to get to the point where I want them to care, and I want them to win the appropriate amount. I
Yep.
need them to be there, the appropriate amount. If some of them are above that, awesome. If some of them are close to where we are, great. But it's not their job, it's their game. And most of the time, it's not for me. It's not their number one thing. It's maybe their fourth number one or top thing.
Yep.
And so letting go a little bit of that, of the expectations of they all need to be like me, that's been helpful. But I love to, I think there are so many parallels with, and I never mandate that we talk about faith or anything on this deal, but if it flows there, man, I'm not going to stop it. And but there are so many parallels with our faith and coaching, and you kind of nailed it. I mean, the rules, that idea, that's Old Testament. And if anybody is familiar with that, golly, they failed a lot at those rules. In fact, it was impossible to keep all of them. Those rules were broken every day, and they had to slaughter tons of animals and follow these rituals to fix it, to get in right standing. I think when you have tons of rules in your program, they're going to be broken by your players, and you're going to feel frustrated. And when they break those rules, the consequences have to be, they have to be intense. They have to feel that pain of when they break those rules. And then you get the Old Testament or the New Testament where Christ is the standard. The rules are no more. We don't have to follow those rules. The standard is what he set by how he lived on earth and how he still lives today and what we have from him in the Bible. And I like it. I like this standards approach too, because again, we aspire on this side of heaven to live like him, but we
Mhm.
know it's not possible. We're
Yep.
never going to do that on this side. And so standards are the same way. We aspire to be excellent with what we do, to have humility in everything, to show up with toughness, and to have incredible enthusiasm. When we fall short in those areas, sometimes there's consequences. The same with our faith. Man, you sin big enough, there's going to be consequences here. Golly, like we have standards. God put standards in place in this with the government, with police, with natural consequences. You jump off of a bridge, golly, that's going to hurt, man. Like there's no way to get around that consequence. But there are within the standards that He set, there's a ton of grace. And I like when we have standards, I like the ability to maybe sometimes I need a hammer. There needs to be a hammer in this moment, a hard consequence, a hard truth. But I also, man, you know what? This kid, there's going to be grace in this situation, because not with the rules, you have to treat all of the situations the same, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah,
It
no
doesn't
doubt.
matter what
You
happened
broke
here,
the rule. Yep.
it was broken. With standards or concepts, and maybe this could bleeds into playing too. I like standards over rules on the court, or sorry, concepts over rules on the court, because concepts we can flow in and out of, and there is
Yep.
some gray, and I can choose. You know what? That dude shot a 6. That's a contested jump shot, but that dude's really, really good, and he's capable of making that shot. So the concepts aren't the same. I don't know. I think that helps us as coaches to be able to treat every kid fairly. And fairly is not to treat them the same,
Nope.
because they're different and situations are different. Sorry, man. Long ramble right there.
No, all good. I would say the kind of pervading thought in that for me, and this is again, I think something I learned more and more in parenting, but like it's all comes back to the heart, right? And to me, a guy can execute the rule, right? He can do the rule, but if his heart is not in it for what our program's about, we're missing it, right? But a guy can miss the mark and the standard, right? But then he gets back to it and he's like, you know what, coach, like I blew it, right? And
Yeah.
again, there's still consequences, right? Like there just are. There's just, listen, I give this with my team and when I do camps and all that stuff. If I let my now almost 3-year-old daughter put her hand on a hot stove top, right? She wants to do it and I let her do it. Am I loving her? No one would say I'm loving her, but she wants to do it. So like, do I just let her do it? No. In fact, I'm hating her, right?
Yeah.
If I let her put her hand on there. So for me to correct and discipline and train her, right, is for me to not let her do something she wants to do. Same thing with our program, right? Same thing for our guys someday when their parents are there in the workforce or they're leading other people, right? It doesn't mean you let people get away with whatever. It doesn't mean you let them define all their own rules, right? Or their own standards. It's, hey, here's our standard. And how are you training or shepherding their heart, right, as you go through this
Yeah.
process? And for me, I think that's where I've loved what our group has done so far, right? We're not perfect, but like we got a group of dudes here that I think our hearts are all, moving in the same direction, right? Coach Tonigal talks about unifying hearts and creating fearless or courageous minds, right? And like I'm trying to unify the hearts of our guys right now as I go through this and I build our program. And so, I mentioned this whole idea of constantly live inside your best, but then like what ties it all together, right? And I think I don't want to use the weird version of love, but like there is an element of like, man, when you love and you care about those that you're with, I'm going to hold you to that standard, right? Or I'm going to make you do hard things, or I'm going to know that, hey, when you do mess up, it wasn't intentional. It was just an error, right? Like there's some of those things, and that's that gray area that can be hard for a guy like me that lives in a black and white world, right? Where it's just like I want to see it as one thing or the other. But again, for me, how do we get you there at the end, right? And sometimes, yeah, it is immediate punishment, and other times it is grace. And that's where I've got to pursue the Lord and walk in step with the Spirit and trust that, like, hey, every situation is going to be a little bit different in how we try to handle it and ultimately get our team and our guys where we want them to be um, at the end of the year. But again, it comes back to like, where's their heart in all of this? Not just checking the box. But again, I don't want to go on the other side of it. Be like, it doesn't matter what you do, right? Like
Yeah.
again, if I truly love the Lord and I believe He's my Savior, that changes my life. That changes my desires. It changes what I do. It changes what I pursue. It changes how I treat my wife, my kids. Like I'm a different person because of that, right? So like in no means am I saying, hey, go do whatever you want or it doesn't matter. Like no, like if I really love and care about something, that's going to be reflected in how I live, right? And same thing for our guys. Like if you love and care about these guys, you're going to be early and make sure your mind's right when you walk into the weight room or the gym or whatever the case might be. Like just because you want to be at your best and you want to do that, not just for you, but for others. And I mean, I think that's the thing with love and pursuing excellence as a program, right? If the only person you care about is you, right? And I'll tell kids this, like, don't come here if you think it's going to be about you. I can promise you one thing, your experience here won't be about you, right? But I will tell you this, like, again, if all you do is invest into yourself, how much can you grow? Very little, right? But if you have 15 other dudes, 16 other dudes, four coaches invest in your growth, man, you can grow a whole heck of a lot more, right? But if all it is about you, that morning's coming, that day's coming, that life event is coming where you're going to shut down, right? And you won't give your best, right? You won't constantly live inside your best. You're cooked, right? But for me, that starts with, right? The joy of the Lord is my strength. I'm pursuing Him. And out of that, right? Lord willing, is this excellence that I'm pursuing. But, I want our guys to be able to look to their left and their right and say, hey, listen, it's not about me today. It's about these guys, right? And they deserve my best for all of us to be at our best. Man, that's the fight you want to be a part of, right?
Yeah.
And that's the fun things, the shared suffering, the in the fight together that you look back at the end of the day, the workout, Lord willing, the end of the season. And I don't know what the scoreboard's going to say. I don't know all those things, right? But man, were we in the fight and did we climb together and love each other throughout this? And are we a different person at the end of the year than we are when we're standing here right now? And for me, like I'm excited about the direction that our guys are going right now, regardless of the outcome.
Well said, man. And I was thinking about the heart and how you mentioned that a few times, and you actually, I think you said capturing. Did you say capturing their heart? Did
Yeah.
you say that phrase? Yeah. So I hope I didn't snicker at all during that. I went back to my McKinney High days uh, before I came to faith, and capturing hearts was a big theme in the
Maybe
teaching
I said
world.
unifying hearts, but
Oh, okay, that's better. But capturing hearts, I feel bad about my attitude I had at that time as a younger coach and also not living well outside of coaching. But I would walk in like, all right, ready to capture some hearts today. And I was making it almost like a joke. But I do think as a coach or a teacher, parent, that is the thing. You got to get to their heart. But my thought was, how do you get there? And then Pat Knight, Bobby Knight's son,
yep.
I got to talk with him, and he said, I asked him kind of that question: how do you get to know your players like that? Because he gave a story about his dad, and then how his dad would know which guys that he could get on and which guys that he couldn't get on. He said he was so in tune with, and he said, first of all, he said that what you think you know about his dad and like what the world portrayed as Bobby Knight, he said you don't know anything. He's like, behind the scenes, incredible with the players, incredible with relationships, and knowing who to push in and out. And I was like, how do you know that? Like, how do you? And he said, meet with them. He said, you got to meet with them. You got to spend time with them. And he said, you got to do it off the floor. He's like, that's what he said. What his dad and now what he does really well is he figures out time to spend off the floor with them. And he said, if you don't do that, then you won't know the ins and outs about them. You won't have their heart. And then at the end of the day, it's most likely going to be just a transactional
Yep.
relationship at that point without maybe some transformational parts here and there. When what we love about sports is that it does show in their failures, in those tough moments, it does show their heart and maybe how they handle that adversity. And you can tap into some things, but So you'll be able to get deeper and you'll be able to share more and you'll be able to hold them to standards. But to me, living in the gray isn't a negative thing like some people, black and white. Well, okay, let's just pretend here's a road, and down this road, there's wrong and things we should not do, even as coaches, whatever, on this side, and then all things that you could do. I want to be gray on that side of the road. I want to be gray in the things that we could do. We could do this or that. These are standards. I'd never want to be gray on the side of which
Yeah, yeah,
a lot of people will say the gray is they're breaking rules. They live in the gray. Yeah, sometimes we do some things. No, I want all my gray to be on the side that of within the standards that we have. Because if one of our standards is for second period, when that horn hits and the 43 minutes begins, as soon as that horn, you better have shoes tied, wearing the appropriate thing, which I don't get too deep in that anymore. And then ball, like we're starting some type of ball handling. And if you're getting that 1 second late, the towels are already laid out. Grab a towel, push it down and back. I want to be able to have flexibility in gray of how many towel pushes I give those kids. If the standard is, if you're 1 second late, you've got 5. Well, crap. Like, what if it's a game day? What if it's my best player?
yeah,
What if he's not feeling well and he was in the restroom just a little bit longer? That
yeah.
happens. I want to have the gray. I want to be able to say, just it down real quick. Or if it's a kid that, you know what, like you don't seem, in my head, you don't seem to care that much about being excellent with your time. You got 5 today, or that thing can keep growing. I want to live in that gray, coach.
Yep. No, I'm with you. And I think that's where, again, I don't want to keep coming back to this heart thing, but like, how do we try to get their hearts on board with what it is that we're trying to teach them, right? Because like at the end of the day, it's not just about the the towel pushes, right? It's about the stuff behind it, right? And how do you get them to get on board with like, hey, this is important, this is a life thing, and like maybe we will, maybe we won't, but like that's the journey that we're trying to get them to understand and jump on board with. And man, you just said that whole idea of like, capture the heart or whatever, and being like, this is dumb. And it's like, man, some of the times I've been most miserable is like I'm not all in someplace, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, I can find all of the negatives, right? And you know what? You spend about 5 minutes with me and you'll have a long list, right? You can call my wife and I'm sure she could give you a few more, right? But like, man, if all I do is look for that, like I'm missing it. And I think, in my early years, even at Indiana Wesleyan, like I could have told you this is Greg's weakness or Jeff's weakness, or I could have been frustrated with this or that. And it's like, shame on you, David, right? Like,
Yeah.
man, these guys have some incredible gifts, right? And as I spent 6 years there on staff, right? Like, man, by the time we got through it, like this was my wheelhouse, this was Jeff's wheelhouse, this was Greg's wheelhouse, and we reached our guys in different ways and all of those things. And like, man, it was fun, right? Like it was fun, but it wasn't about what we're not. It's about, hey, these are where these guys are gifted, right? And then you get to live into those things. And I don't want my assistants and the people I see in the athletic office just to hone in on my weaknesses, right? Like I want them to come in and help live into their strengths to help complement some of my weaknesses, right? And I think for me in marriage, that's one of the sweetest things. Like my wife compliments my many, many failures, right? With a lot of awesome strength. And it's an awesome partnership to be able to do life with that person, right? And
Yeah.
this is my marriage advice unsolicited. Somebody told me this once. Um, they said, "Hey, just don't find a woman that will make a great wife and mother, right? Find a woman that'll make a great wife and mother for you, right?" And for me, like that changed things in a lot of ways, right? Another guy said self-awareness is a superpower, right? So to know
TJ
somebody's
Rosine. Yeah.
weaknesses, right, and all of
Yeah.
those things, and then to find somebody that can come alongside you and be your helper, like that's a sweet thing in life.
Going back to something you said early on, because you mentioned some names that are kind of on my personal Mount Rushmore as well. I think Tyler Costin's one of the best teachers of the game. His mind is amazing to me. I am not creative. I don't make new things. I don't make new systems. I borrow everything. So
Yeah.
I always feel bad when if somebody ever wants to talk to me about shooting or about flow or about skill work or something. Sure, I'm going to share with you everything I've taken from everyone else. But I think TJ Rosine's one of the best coaches in
Yeah.
America. Mono is the closest thing to perfect that you find on this side. My first time directing with PGC years ago, first session, I was only supposed to observe. And the two other directors who were also kind of training at the first meeting were like, Matt, what session do you want to do? What module? And I'm like, guys, I went to one with Dick DeVenzio in high school. I don't know anything that you're doing. I just choose one. It'll be fine. Well, he gave me Wednesday morning, and it was funny enough, defensive. No, it's cracking the code, cracking the pressure code. Mono and TJ were in the audience evaluating the other two, but that was when they just arrived. So my first session there, and I went way over time, and I yelled at one kid for sleeping, and I snapped my finger and I said, "Hey, wake him up." And afterwards, Monos comes over. He's like, "Matt, how can we help that young man choose to stay awake without you having to make him?" I was like, well, why? That sounds like a lot of work. Can I just make him run or make him look silly? That was a really powerful. But going back to something you said, which was those minds and feeling like I can't be them. I can't do that. I'm not that guy. I think one of the most inspiring things in people is authenticity. When you listen to somebody that you feel like that is truly who they are. Some of the issues I feel like PGC's had over the years is guys trying to be Chad, guys trying to be Tyler, guys trying to be this or that. And if those athletes were ever at my sessions or at Jamin Copeland sessions, they weren't getting that. They were getting who we were. But I think as a coach, you said self-awareness as a superpower, definitely. You also have to be authentic and feel good in your skin, competent, and believe in what you're teaching. And I think that's a recipe to get that engagement from those guys. But I wonder, we want to keep our players away from comparison. It's the thief of all joy. I think as coaches, we're comparing. Like every time I watch Buzz Williams videos on Twitter, my heart sinks of how uninspiring I am, and how much of a drain it must be within the gym. Maybe I learn from him and I try to pull a few nuggets here or there, but trying to figure out within the skill sets we have with who we are to be our very, very best. Hard to do though, Coach.
So hard to do. So hard. And man, Buzz is at a place where he's resourced really well and all of those things. And I'm sure his guys are having a great experience, right? And at the end of the day, everybody can't have that same experience, right? And so how do we just make sure we give our guys where they're at the best possible experience that we can? And again, kind of coming full circle to where we taught or started, like for me, a big part of that is like I gotta care about them, right? And like I got a laundry list of stuff that I can do. But like, dude, if I'm not caring about them, okay, they got cool unis, but like, what's it matter, right? Like,
guys, listen, I don't really care about you at all, the relationships. You better win or not, but hey, at very least, you got
a good
unis.
uniform, right? Like what I think what I want someday, right, is a recruit to come in and behind closed doors, it's like, hey man, we might not have all the resources, right? Like we might not be Duke, but like, man, I don't know if you're gonna find a place where the staff cares and our players are gonna hold you accountable to a high standard that you're gonna leave here being a better man and you're more equipped for the next 40 years, right? Like, man, Lord willing, we can do that here just as much as they can do it at any other place, right? And what my weight room, like, I mean, I think we have great facilities here for the most part, right? And our scholarship seems pretty good, right? And some of those things, but like somebody's always got more, somebody's got less, right? And it'll always be that way. And so being where your feet are and being present and emptying yourself, right, for those around you, that's what we want to try to do. And hopefully in the end, right, like those things resonate with these guys. And man, at the end of the day, I just don't want them to be changed while we're here, right? Like I want them to be changed long after they're gone, right? And that's the prayer, that's the desire. Like you want this thing to keep giving long after they've left this place and long after I'm gone.
You mentioned facilities or things that you guys have that, and then you watch online and you see what other people have. I mean, you would be amazed in Dallas, Texas, or these bigger cities in Texas, some of these bigger public schools, what they have It's incredible. It's not so easy for me in my little office here with our one gym and all this stuff just to kind of almost pour me, or if I was there, then I could really do this or that. Well, one, I believe that mentality is wrong, and I think the mentality needs to be make the big time where we are. And I think so.
TJ
Whatever you
Rosier's
have,
done a great job of that.
no doubt. Yeah.
Like that dude has just crushed it there. My brother went down and played for him for a year. I mean, Graham's been faithful there for a long time, right? Like he just said, "Hey, we're gonna make Franklin Springs our home, and we're gonna do it right there." And what is it, Bar H? I think that's the only restaurant they've got there in town. Maybe a Bojangles or something like that. But it's like 30 minutes to a Subway, right? Like it's crazy
Yeah.
down there. But and it's been a few years since I've been down there or whatever. But I don't know what they got now. But yeah, it's like make it the big time where you're at. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good. Dick DeVincio had one of my favorite quotes is like, somebody out there with your same set of circumstances could do way more than you are. And you kind of talked about that. Somebody could reach that kid. I think that's maybe a great activity is walk through your gym, walk through your locker room, walk through your weight room, and see in what ways could this be enhanced. And I'm not talking about by a lot of money. Like we need to fundraise. We need to get a screen. We need to get more 3 guns. We got to get this and that. No, I think with what you have right now, the idea has to be that somebody could do way more with that space, with the resources that we have. I mean, Kevin Eastman mentioned that when Doc Rivers and then we're at the Celtics, that they looked at everything that they had, all the facilities, and they just figured, how can we make this more excellent? How can we make this more big time? And maybe they have a few million to throw out some stuff.
Yep.
But if you're like me, where my budget is done when I order 10 basketballs for the year, then how do we make this? How do we get creative? In what ways can we move some stuff, throw some stuff away, paint something, hang some stuff, get, things that don't cost a lot. Let's make this excellent because the idea is that somebody could do it.
Yep, no doubt. I'm right there with you.
Coach, this is one of those rare talks that we launched into it without even I didn't pause or anything, and I didn't even thank you for coming on. We just started talking, and then I never asked a question. It just flowed throughout, but if you look over the list that you did choose, we nailed a lot of those.
Sure.
But before I let you go, I want to get to the speed round. These are going to be quick questions. The first thing that pops in your head, go ahead and blurt it out. If guys don't know you, they'll know you really well after this.
Okay.
All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Mint chocolate chip.
Oh, same. Let's go. Greatest shooter of all time?
Steph Curry.
Let's take Jesus off the list. Top 3 dinner guests that you'd like to have any time period.
Oh, man, you're making me think for this one. Jesus is off the table. I'm okay with that. I'm trying to think of people I don't know that I'd want to sit down and do dinner with.
One coach said his dad. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's originally who came to my mind, but I'm like, man, I get to eat dinner with my dad a lot, right?
Son, I listened to your episode. Whenever you're one, I'm free. So
no, I would say John Wooden would probably be a guy that's up there that would just be an awesome dude to spend time with. Charles Haddon Spurgeon would probably be another like legendary guy there that you just love to be around. I got the chance. I worked over in Europe for a little bit and got to go to the church that he used to preach at. That was a pretty cool experience there. And then I'll go with like a world leader from like back in the day, like a George Washington, right? Just to like learn more about like what was it actually like jumping over and starting a country.
Nice. Best basketball movie of all time?
Hoosiers. I'm an Indiana guy. There's not even a question.
Yeah, I always love the like you're an idiot look on people's faces when Hoosiers like texting or talking.
Talking.
Okay. For high school, I'm in Texas where we don't have one. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
I'm a fan of it. Schedule the teams you want to schedule, right? Like if it's that big of a deal and you feel like you're going to get blown out, don't schedule those people, right? Like I get it.
With the exception of district, right? You do have a lot of control over that.
100%.
Yeah. I think scheduling's an art that you learn over the years. I think early on I was pretty bad at it. If you're a believer in your team, and you want them to go through some good competition, then you schedule like really hard, and then you realize, okay, maybe crush their confidence too much there. And I think there's an art to that.
Yeah, I just think with the shot clock thing, it's like how many possessions at the end of the day really is the shot clock required?
Not many.
Not tons, but it sure makes it for those times when somebody wants to sit out there for the last minute or minute and a half and hold it, where it's like, man, is that really good for anybody in the end? Like,
Right.
is the better team really winning because of that? But that's, again, there's guys that are like, that's what makes high school high school. And I totally,
Pure.
yeah, I respect your opinion.
There you go. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
You're up 3 on defense with 5 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
Foul under 6.
Foul. Nice. What book would you give someone?
What book would I give someone? Basketball wise, I'd give them Stuff Good Players Should Know by Dick DeVinzio. That
Great
would
book.
be a good one. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to get into all the parenting ones and all that stuff right now. I'll tip my hand a little bit too much.
All right. Favorite place to travel?
Man, I got to work in London for a little bit, and that was a pretty awesome experience to go over there. But any sort of vacation, man, I'm going someplace hot. It can't be too hot. I love it.
Last one, probably the most important in basketball. Who's the GOAT?
I'm gonna say MJ.
Now, you didn't have a lot of conviction there.
No, I think it's hard to the game in different eras, right? Like I really think it's different. I just personally love the Kobe and the MJ mentality. Like you can argue LeBron and all of those things, but
Yep.
like there is a coming back to authenticity. There's an authenticity about MJ and Kobe that is just
I'm not here for friends. I don't care about your friends. That's what made the Redeem Team, that Netflix like a documentary, amazing.
that scene
Because
with Pau was awesome.
Yes. It showed how nice of a guy Pau Gasol is. Like, if your buddy, your teammate, you happen to be playing and knocks you out, like how do you not hold on to that for a long time? Like
Yeah.
the Lakers lose the next season because these two are fighting the whole year. That was incredible. But the way that I it was before social media was really letting us inside of all of the drama in the locker rooms. I knew that there was this stigma about Kobe, but I didn't know really how the rest of the league felt. And when they talk about like he didn't really have friends and he's coming into this team, but the way that the LeBron effect right there, the way LeBron embraced him, broke his walls down, but then that hit the competitiveness of Kobe elevated everybody else. That documentary, it to me is better than, hard to say, the one about the 92 Dream Team. Great players, killed everybody, fun to see Jordan be awesome.
Yeah.
The Redeem Team and with Coach K and everything, if you haven't watched it, man, awesome.
Yeah, check it out. Definitely.
Coach, so enjoyable, man, this talk with you. Really do appreciate your time, even though I didn't thank you early on for coming on. There's no interaction or much relationship here at all before today, but that's what I love about the game and I love about coaching is you can have a talk with somebody and just feel completely comfortable like you've known this guy for a long time, because when you love what you're doing like you do, then it's just easy to build that relationship. This was really fun.
Hey, I appreciate you reaching out and letting me jump on with you, and just for what you do, right? Like you hop on and you've got different guys that have gone on there and those tidbits and they spur different thoughts and all of those different things. So thanks for carving out the time and allowing me to be a part of it. I appreciate it.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.